Welcome to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. Today's date, December 16th, episode 105 of this podcast. Today, let's just get started right into our tip-off topics. Leading off with the NBA Cup Finals, tipping off tomorrow. So before we get into our plays in the last segment with our scouting report, let's rewind and let's look at the games that took place Saturday night. First, Milwaukee winning 110-102 versus the Atlanta Hawks, covering the spread. Simply put, folks, this had to do with that guy right there, Giannis Antetokounmpo, with a big 32-point, 14 rebound, 9 assists, 1 assist short of a triple-double in a game that I thought was going to go well under the number. What you've seen, folks, right off the bat with this NBA Cup, particularly once they got to the quarterfinals, was defense was being served. Remember, folks, last time these two teams played, it was 119-104. It was 223. I think the over-under in the game was 233. This went to 212. So Giannis with 32, 14, and 9. But you also got to look at the play of Damian Lillard with 25.6 rebounds, 7 assists, playing really good basketball to offset the play of Trae Young with 35 and 10. Simply put, Milwaukee is playing much better now that Andre Jackson's been put into the starting lineup, and now you can bring a bench. Oh, no, he didn't play well, of Chris Middleton, Gary Trent Jr., and Bobby Portis. That's an experienced group that can keep you in the games, then allow you to kind of take off games in the end and get the win. Milwaukee wins 110-102, and they will face off against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who hit the Rockets with an absolute lightning bolt, thunder, whatever you want to call it. But whatever they hit it with, it worked. 70 points in the second half by the Oklahoma City Thunder. And yes, you can talk about the fact that Houston had 6 players in double figures, led by Thompson with 16 and 7. But you had, ready for this, folks, 4 players from the Thunder that scored 19 points or more, led by SGA with 32, 8, and 6. And let's be honest, folks, since he's came back, Isaiah Hartenstein has been a huge addition for the Oklahoma City Thunder. You know why they gave him the 3-year, almost $88 million deal. This is why. 28 points, 8 rebounds, showing that he's more than just a defender, someone that can score around the basket with that push shot. Jalen Williams also with 20, and I think Lou Dort ended up with 19. So it sets up an interesting final that will take place tomorrow night, Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. from Las Vegas. The Bucks versus the Thunder. In our third segment of Scouting Report, I'll give you all of my favorite plays in that game. Moving on, what now trades could start to happen for free agents. One trade that just was consummated Saturday, found as on Sunday, had Dennis Schroder being traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the Golden State Warriors in a trade for DeAnthony Melton and 3 second-round picks. And folks, this is what we're going to see here. We're going to see a 2-guard attack, point guard attack. Looks like Steve Kerr is going to use Schroder to bring him to start the game and play Steph off the ball. That allows Schroder, who's really going to drive into the lane and creating for others, the ability to do that. And then have someone like Steph Curry to space the floor. This is a team in, obviously, the Golden State Warriors, who just got Draymond Green back. You know, they're sitting right now. The Warriors are, I think they're 8th right now in the Western Conference. Folks, they are 2-8 straight up their last 10 games. They had to make a move. This move, I think, helps them. And although there was talk about someone like Cam Johnson being in a deal, they didn't want to give up someone like a Jonathan Kuminga. This is a good trade for the Golden State Warriors to give them a little bit more juice, a little bit more lift. Someone can drive and kick. And for the Nets, this is the beginning of the tear it down phase. Look for Cam Johnson possibly to be moved. You don't know what's going to happen with Cam Thomas because he's going to be a free agent. You have to look at Dorian Finney-Smith. This is not going to be the beginning or the only move, I would say, by the Brooklyn Nets. Expect a flurry of moves to come. Next up, injury front news. And the Sixers can't catch a break. Now, Jared McCain is out with a torn lateral meniscus. And Jared McCain, who was playing exceptional basketball, folks, a Jared McCain that until he got hurt, folks, he was the leader in the clubhouse for the Rookie of the Year. A Jared McCain that was giving you 15.3 points, 2.6 assists. Remember, they still have Embiid out for another week. Shams reported today. It looks like maybe another week before he could come back. So this now falls on Maxey and Paul George and Kelly Oubre. They must do a better job here for a 76ers team that is sitting right now 4th place in the Atlantic Division, 7-16 record. They must be better, folks. And it's going to start by the star play. They have to be better. Philadelphia right now at 7-16, 1 game out of the loss column, right? They've only played 23 games. Brooklyn, 2 games in hand. Remember, folks, Brooklyn, 10th place. They're going to take at some point. The Bulls, I think they're going to sell off some players also. So you could have a situation where Philadelphia should look to get into the playoffs. Hint, hint. We'll talk about that next subject. Going to the college game and the struggles of Arizona men's basketball. Tommy Lloyd's team was really expected to have a big year right now. And folks, it is not happening. This team is struggling mightily with a record of 5, I believe it's 5-5 or 4-5, I should say, on the year after losing to UCLA. Simply put, they miss Larson, they miss Omar Ballo. They miss those 2 guys that were such integral parts of what they need to do. And if you look at a team like this in Arizona, right, you have to think about is with this team, it's got to be the play of Caleb Love. This is a guy that's in his 5th year, should be producing better than 13.3 points per game and shooting, get this, folks, right now at 28% from 3, 36% from the floor. If they're going to get better, it's got to start with Caleb Love. Let's see, they take on Samford on Wednesday night as they look to get right. Last topic is, are they back? We wrote off UConn after losing 3 games in a row after coming out of Maui. But they have turned around and they've played really good basketball with back-to-back-to-back wins versus Baylor, at Texas in a blowout. It was an 11-point game, but it wasn't that close. And then a great game at MSG Saturday night versus Gonzaga. They are starting to play better basketball, and they're starting to climb back up the rankings after being as low as 25th. They have now climbed themselves back. I think they're in the top 20 right now, the UConn Huskies. And when you think about UConn, what is happening with them? It's got to be to play. Liam McNeely is starting to play better at 13.6 points per game. He's had a little bit of a better stretch here, 26 points versus Gonzaga, showing why people think that Liam McNeely is going to be a lottery pick. Listen, at the end of the day, I said it, if Dan Hurley can control his emotions and get his team to play right, you're going to be looking at a team that we think at the end of the day can contend for a national championship. Alex Caravan, I know he was off, only 8 points, but 3 of the previous 4 games before that, he scored 19, 21, 21. Now with these guys gone, with Tristan Newton gone, with Don McClingan gone, with Cam Spencer gone, it takes Alex Caravan has to step himself up. If those 2 can step up, they can give themselves a chance to win and contend again for a national title. Coming back after this commercial break, we'll get into our award tour. We'll look at some award winners possibly for Player of the Year in men's college basketball and women's college basketball. And I'll give you 2 teams I think that are going to make the NBA playoffs. This is the Betting Above the Rim podcast. We'll be back after this commercial break. Welcome back to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. It's time for our award tour where we look at future odds in college basketball and in the NBA. And we'll start with college basketball. And now that we're in, a month into the season, it's time to really look at the awards race in regards to National Player of the Year. Right now, the leader in the clubhouse, Johnny Broome, the star forward out of Auburn at minus 175. Cooper Flagg, who was the leader before the season at plus 340. Cam Jones and Marquette at 5.5 to 1. Chaz Lanier, 22 to 1 from Tennessee. Keyshawn Gilbert, 30 to 1 from Iowa State. Mark Sears, who was up there early this year, at 50 to 1. Dylan Harper, Rutgers, 75 to 1. Walter Clayton Jr., the star guard out of Florida, 100 to 1. Hunter Dickinson and R.J. Davis, two fifth-year guys, also at 100 to 1. And there's a reason why Auburn people are talking about closing the gap. Right now, the number 2 team in the country, and it's been the play of Johnny Broome. Johnny Broome is getting you 19.7 points per game, 12.7 rebounds. Folks, simply put, these are the best stats of his career. He's never averaged more than 10.5 rebounds. He's got 12.7. He's never averaged more than 16.8 points per game. He's getting you 19.7. He's got 2.8 blocks. His assists are 1.5 assists higher than last year. He's shooting at 55.8%, which is the best of his, not the best of his career. He shot at 57%, but that was as a freshman, so we're not going to really count that. The only thing that you got to worry about with a guy like Johnny Broome, 59% from the foul line? Come on, man. We got to be better than that. Coach needs to get you on the foul line and work on them free throws. But because of the way they've played, and if you look at the schedule that they've played, right, getting 20 points in that big win at Houston, 21 versus Iowa State, 23 versus UNC, 21 versus Memphis, 20 versus Duke, right, 21 and 20 in his last game versus Ohio State. And if you look at all those games I've talked about, folks, every one but Houston was a double-double, and Houston was 20-9. So this guy is putting up big-time stats versus the best competition, and there's no reason, it's obvious why, a guy like Johnny Broome right now is the leader in the clubhouse in regards to Player of the Year. When you look at Cooper Flagg and what he's done, listen, he's been good. I think the problem with Cooper is I think we may have had unrealistic expectations of him. He's getting you 15.9 points per game, 9 rebounds, 3.6 assists, shooting at 42% from the floor, but 22% from three. And this is something that we thought about as a shot maker. We were hoping to see a better version of Cooper Flagg. But listen, 20 or more points in 2 of his last 3 games. I'm not counting the game that he had 6 points on last Tuesday night in a 72-46 win. 20 points at Louisville, 22 in that game versus Auburn. He has been the goods. He just hasn't been as good as Johnny Broome. If there's a sneaky pick to look at and you want to talk freshman, how about Dylan Harper of Rutgers? Dylan Harper is sitting at 75 to 1. Dylan Harper is getting you 23.5 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, 4.4 assists, shooting at 37% from the floor, 52% from the floor. 52% from the floor, 36% from three, 76% from the line. So you look at that with a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. That's good for a guard. The problem with Rutgers is even at 7-4, they've kind of underachieved, particularly in that loss to obviously Kennesaw State a couple of weeks ago. So my pick is going to be Johnny Broome. Sleeper pick, Dylan Harper at 75 to 1. When you go to the women's side, it's a tight race at the top. 3 people. Hannah Doggo plus 145. Paige Beckers plus 160. They actually were tied last night. Juju Watkins plus 340. And then after that, it's a long line. Anisha Morrow, Flau'jae Johnson, Olivia Miles, Kiki Ariafen, Lauren Betts, Malaysia Fulwiley, and Reagan Betts round out the top 10. And when you look at it, it is really, to me, a 2-horse race, a 3-horse race, but 2 of the horses got co-stars. And that's Hannah Doggo and Juju Watkins. Simply put, folks, Olivia Miles has come back from the knee injury last year, so we got to see how she looks. She's going to start to get better. Juju's got Kiki Ariafen. I'm going with Paige Beckers at plus 160 to go ahead and get that done here, because I think she does not have the star power with her along that someone that Hannah Hidalgo has and someone that Juju Watkins has. So we're going to go with Paige Beckers at plus 160. Heading to the NBA now, take a look at two teams that I think are going to make the playoffs. And folks, I said a little bit about this last segment. I'm going with Philadelphia. Hear me out. It's minus 112 to make the playoffs. Right now, they're the 11th seed. They have 2 games at hand. They're only 1 game behind in the loss column, right? And if you look at the 2 teams ahead of them at 9th and 10th, and then who's in 11th, it's Chicago, it's Brooklyn, and it's Detroit. I think the Sixers find a way to get themselves to at least 9th and not 8th, and then I'm going to trust that they're going to find a way to make the playoffs. I like the 76ers at minus 112. Flipping over, plus money side. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Sacramento Kings at plus 118 to make the playoffs. They're sitting at 13-13, right? And then if you look at it, one of these teams are going to start to come back to the pack, right? I still don't believe in the Clippers, and I don't think Kawhi is going to be able to stay healthy long enough. I don't believe in the Lakers enough. I think Sacramento finds a way to get themselves into that top 9 or 8, and then from that point, I still trust this team. I do believe in the coaching of Mike Brown will find a way to get this done and get them into the playoffs. When you look at Domantas Sabonis, if you look at De'Aaron Fox, you look at Malik Monk, you look at DeMar DeRozan, they've had injuries. They just have to find a way to get themselves healthy. Go ahead and take Sacramento at plus 118 to make the playoffs. Coming up next, our scouting report. I'll give you my scouting report for the NBA Cup Finals, which tip off 8:30 Tuesday night between Oklahoma City Thunder and the Milwaukee Bucks. Can Giannis or SGA bring home the title? We'll talk about the scouting report coming up after this commercial break. Welcome back to the Betting Above the Rim podcast, and it's time for our scouting report where we look at one game and one game only, and that's the finals of the NBA Cup, which tip off tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from Las Vegas as the Oklahoma City Thunder take on the Milwaukee Bucks. Line right now has the Oklahoma City Thunder -5, over under at 214. It's moved a little bit. It's moved up a little bit in the last, I would say, 24 hours. It's now at 215.5. So make sure you get the most up-to-date lines once you go to your favorite sportsbook. We use FanDuel, of course, in order to get our line. So make sure you take a look at that before you go ahead and place your bets. First things first, side. I like Oklahoma City Thunder minus the 5 points. I think this team is clicking on all cylinders. When you look at this Oklahoma City Thunder team, with Isaiah Hartenstein coming in and off the injury, they've just played really, really great basketball as of late. Oklahoma City Thunder. And I just saw what I saw in that second half and that performance versus Houston getting 70 points. This team has won, I do believe, 6 games in a row. I think it's 11 out of 12. Listen, they've been hot too, the Milwaukee Bucks, but I just look at the way that they've won, particularly their last 2 games, winning by 14 versus Dallas and winning by 15 over Houston. I do like the Milwaukee Bucks not to get the win. I like Oklahoma City Thunder minus the 5 points to go ahead and get it done. When it comes down to over-under at being at 215.5, now that it's creeped up, I like under. I think what you've seen here, folks, is you've seen a competitive spirit in the NBA Cup. When Adam Silver came up with this concept, they wanted to see basketball being played at a high level, particularly at the defensive end of the floor. I think this means a lot to both teams. For a Milwaukee team that underachieved last year, and people question, including myself, the coaching of Doc Rivers, they needed to play better. And then if you look at the flip side with Oklahoma City, obviously with SGA, this is a team that wants to win an NBA title. And for a young team like them, I think it's important for them to play really, really good basketball. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say this game goes under 215.5. Make sure, like I said before, you go ahead and you take a look at that. When we get to the scoring props for the game, SGA leads it at 32.5 points for Oklahoma City. Jalen Williams at 21.5. Isaiah Hartenstein at 11.5. Lou Dort, 10.5. Kason Wallace at 7.5. Isaiah Joe at 6.5, along with Alex Caruso. When you start to look at where do you think there could be value is, I'm going to take a look at, honestly, at Isaiah Hartenstein. 21, 10, and 12 his last 3 games. He should be able to get big minutes here, and he could pose, especially running the floor in transition, a little bit of a problem for a player like Brook Lopez. So another way you could look at it too is if you could find a double-double market for someone like Isaiah Hartenstein, I think that's something that you may want to take a look at. It's minus 105 right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook. So either or, Isaiah Hartenstein over 11.5 points or Isaiah Hartenstein to get a double-double at minus 105. When you go to the other side with the Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis 29.5 points, Damian Lillard 22.5, 11.5 for Bobby Portis, 8.5 for Brook Lopez, 8.5 for Chris Middleton, 6.5 for AJ Green. I'm going to go with 2 plays here. Number one, I'm going to go with Giannis, not on the points prop, to get 12 plus rebounds at minus 110 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. I think this is a situation where you could have a big rebounding performance, half-court game, tons of rebounds, and tons of opportunities for Giannis to get rebounds. Giannis averaging 11.5 rebounds per game, 14 in his last time out. And then I'm going to go sneaky here. Chris Middleton over 6.5 points. Now listen, folks, he's only been back for a couple of games, only 4 games, averaging 7 points per game, but he had 6, missed it, but he only played 22 minutes. Does Doc Rivers give the wily veteran a little bit more, especially if he thinks that they're going to need a little bit more of a scoring punch? Remember, he's coming off the bench. They're starting Andre Jackson, so you may be getting a low-hanging fruit for Chris Middleton to score over 6.5 points. This has been your Betting Above the Rim podcast for December 16th. For all things sports gambling, download that Sports Grid app. Pre-game, in-game, post-game, props, predictions, and more from the very best in the sports gambling industry. Next podcast, we'll get more awards. We'll recap the NBA Cup, and we'll get ready for a big weekend of college basketball. For our producer, Matty George, thank you for listening. Remember, folks, it's smarter to be on Sports Grid.